My name is Lily. I am 27 years old. I live in a small town. When I was a little girl, I dreamed of a happy life. I wanted a small house with flowers outside. I wanted a kind husband and 1 or 2 children. I thought love was easy and life would be simple. But life is not always like dreams. Sometimes it is hard, but it can also be full of love. When I was 22, I met Jack. He was 25. He had short black hair and brown eyes. He was tall and always smiled. He worked at a small market. I worked at a flower shop. We met one day when he came to buy roses. He looked at me and said, "These flowers are beautiful, like your smile." I felt shy but happy. I said thank you. He came back the next day and asked, "What's your name?" I said, "I'm Lily." He said, "I'm Jack. Can I have your phone number?" I gave it to him. That evening, Jack sent me a message. "Do you like to walk in the park?" he asked. I said, "Yes, I love parks." He said, "Let's go tomorrow." I agreed. The next day, we met at a park. The sun was warm and the trees were green. We walked and talked for hours. Jack told me about his job at the market. He liked to help customers. I told him about my love for flowers. I said roses are my favorite. He smiled and said, "I'll remember that." I liked him. He was kind and funny. We started to see each other often. Jack brought me small gifts. Sometimes he gave me a rose. Sometimes he brought me a candy bar. He called me every night. He told me funny stories about his day. I laughed a lot. After 4 months, I said, "Jack, I love you." He looked at me with his big brown eyes and said, "I love you too, Lily." My heart felt warm. I thought we would be together forever. We were happy for 1 year. I worked at the flower shop and Jack worked at the market. We didn't have much money, but we didn't need much. We went for walks, ate ice cream, and watched the stars at night. I thought this was the life I always wanted. But then something changed. One morning, I woke up feeling sick. My stomach hurt, and I felt dizzy. I thought it was just a bad day. But the next day, I felt sick again. My friend, Sophie, said, "Lily, maybe you're pregnant." I laughed and said, "No, that's not possible." But I wasn't sure. I went to the store and bought a pregnancy test. I went home and used it. I waited. My hands were shaking. The test showed 2 lines. I was pregnant. I sat on my bed and looked at the test. I was scared, but I was also a little excited. I wanted to tell Jack. That night, I went to his apartment. The room smelled like coffee. I said, "Jack, I have something important to tell you." He looked at me and asked, "What is it?" I took a deep breath and said, "I'm going to have a baby." He was quiet. He looked at the floor. The room was silent. Then he said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I did a test. I'm sure." Jack stood up and walked to the window. He didn't look at me. He said, "This is not a good time. I'm not ready to be a father." My heart felt heavy, like a stone. I said, "But we love each other. We can do this together." He shook his head and said, "I need time to think." That night, he didn't hug me or kiss me. I went home and cried. My pillow was wet with tears. I couldn't sleep. I felt so alone. The next day, Jack didn't call. I sent him messages, but he didn't answer. I called him, but he didn't pick up. A week later, I went to his apartment. I knocked on the door. No one answered. I sent one last message. "Please talk to me, Jack." He replied, "I'm sorry, Lily. I can't do this." That was the last time I heard from Jack. I sat in my room and cried. I cried for hours. I felt like my dreams were gone. I was pregnant, and the man I loved left me. I told my parents. My mum hugged me tightly. Her shirt smelt like soap. She said, "We will help you, Lily." My dad was quiet, but he said, "You're not alone." I moved back to my parents' house. I felt small, like a child again. But I wasn't a child. I was going to be a mother. Every day I felt more tired. My belly grew bigger. I went to the doctor. The room was cold, and the machine made a soft hum. I saw my baby on a screen. The doctor said, "The baby is healthy." I heard the heartbeat. It was fast, like a tiny drum. I smiled and cried at the same time. The baby gave me hope. I worked at the flower shop until I was 8 months pregnant. I saved money to buy things for the baby. I got a crib, small clothes, and diapers. I wanted to be ready. One night, I felt a sharp pain. It was late, and the house was quiet. I told my mum, and she took me to the hospital. The hospital smelt like medicine. The nurse said, "The baby is coming soon." I was scared. The pain was strong, like a storm inside me. I held my mum's hand. Her hand was warm. After many hours, I heard a small cry. The nurse said, "It's a girl." They gave her to me. She was tiny and soft. Her eyes were closed, and she had little curls of hair. I smiled and said, "Hello, my baby. I'm your mum." I named her Ava. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Then I went home with Ava. My mum helped me during the day, but at night it was just me and my baby. Ava cried a lot. I fed her, changed her diapers, and held her when she was upset. I was so tired. My eyes hurt and my body felt heavy. Sometimes I sat on my bed and cried too. But when I looked at Ava's small face, I felt love. I kissed her head and said, "I will always take care of you." I never heard from Jack. One day I saw him in town. He was walking with another woman. She had long hair and laughed loudly. He laughed loudly. He looked at me and then looked away. I wanted to shout, "How can you leave us?" But I didn't. I held Ava's stroller and walked home. I told myself, Ava doesn't need him. She has me. When Ava was 6 months old, I went back to work at the flower shop. My mum watched Ava during the day. I missed Ava every minute, but I needed the money. At work, I smiled at customers and arranged flowers. My hands smelled like roses. My feet hurt and my back ached. But I kept going. When I got home, I played with Ava. I sang to her. She smiled and her eyes were bright. I felt happy. Ava grew fast. When she was 1 year old, she said, "Mama." My heart was full. I clapped and hugged her. She made me strong. Life was not easy. My job didn't pay much. I bought food, diapers, and clothes for Ava. I didn't buy things for myself. My shoes were old and my clothes were simple. But I didn't care. Ava was happy, and that was enough. My parents helped a lot. My mum cooked dinner when I was tired. Her soup was warm and smelled good. My dad played with Ava. He made funny faces, and she laughed loudly. I was thankful for my parents. Without them, life would be much harder. One day, Ava was sick. She had a fever. Her face was hot, and she cried a lot. I was so scared. I called the doctor. He said, "Give her medicine and water." I stayed up all night holding Ava. I sang soft songs and said, "Please get better." The room was dark, and the only sound was Ava's breathing. In the morning, her fever was gone. I kissed her head and said, "You're okay now." I felt so relieved. When Ava was 2, we moved to a small apartment. It was tiny, but it was ours. The walls were white and the floor was clean. I put Ava's bed next to mine. I hung a picture of us on the wall. The first night, we ate dinner on the floor. Ava dropped her spoon and laughed. Her laugh was like music. I smiled and said, "This is our home now." Life in the apartment was simple but busy. I worked at the flower shop, paid rent, and took care of Ava. She loved books about animals. Her favourite was a story about a yellow bird. She said, "Bird flies high." I laughed and hugged her. Some nights I felt lonely. I missed having someone to talk to. But I didn't miss Jack. He chose to leave. I chose to stay strong. At work, I met a woman with a baby. She looked tired, like me. She said, "Being a mum is hard, isn't it?" I said, "Yes, but it's worth it." She smiled and said, "You're doing a good job." Her words made me feel warm inside. I wasn't alone. Other mums understood. When Ava was 3, she started to talk more. She asked, "Why is the grass green?" I said, "It's nature's colour." She smiled and asked more questions. She was curious and smart. I took her to the park and she ran with other children. The park smelled like fresh grass. I sat on a bench and watched her. I felt proud. One day I saw Jack at the park. He was alone. He looked at Ava and me, then walked away. I held Ava's hand and said to myself, "We don't need him." Ava didn't know Jack, and that was okay. I was her mum, and I was enough. When Ava was 4, she started school. She wore a new pink bag with stars. She held my hand and said, "Mum, I'm scared." I said, "You're brave, Ava. I'll wait for you." She went into the classroom and waved. I waved back and cried. The tears were warm on my face. I was proud, but I was also sad. My baby was growing up. Ava's teacher said, "She's a kind girl. She shares her toys." I smiled and said, "Thank you." Her words made me happy. I was trying my best, and maybe it was enough. One day, Ava came home with a drawing. It was a picture of me and her holding hands. She said, "This is us, Mum." I hugged her and said, "I love it." Now Ava is 5. She is tall and strong. She likes to draw pictures and sing songs. Every morning she says, "Good morning, Mum." Her voice is bright like the sun. I say, "Good morning, my love." Our life is simple. I still work at the flower shop. I still count every coin. But Ava's smile makes everything okay. One Sunday, I took Ava to the park. She ran and played. A man sat next to me and said, "Is she your daughter?" I said, "Yes." He said, "She's happy. You're a good mum." I smiled and said, "Thank you." I looked at Ava. She was laughing and running. Her hair moved in the wind. I thought about the hard days, the tears, and the long nights. But I also thought about the love. I did this alone, and I am proud. Ava loves school. She has friends. She tells me, "My friend Mia has a cat." I say, "That's nice." She asks, "Can we get a cat?" I say, "Maybe." I work extra hours to save money. I want Ava to have a good life. I dream that she will go to a good school and be happy. One night, Ava asked, "Mum, where is my dad?" I felt a pain in my chest. I sat next to her on the bed. The room was quiet and her eyes were big. I said, "You have a dad, but he doesn't live with us. He made a choice to leave." Ava looked at me and said, "But I have you." I hugged her tightly and said, "Yes, and I will never leave you." That night, I cried a little in the kitchen. I didn't want Ava to hear. I just needed to let it out. My friends don't visit much. They go out and have fun. I stay home with Ava. I read her stories and sing to her. I tell her, "You are my best friend." She smiles and hugs me. My parents still help. My mum watches Ava when I work late. My dad plays with her and makes her laugh. I am so thankful for them. One day, a woman at the flower shop said, "Your daughter is lucky to have you." I smiled and said, "I'm lucky to her." Her words stayed in my heart. I was tired, but I was strong. I was a mother, and that was enough. Have you ever felt alone? Have you done something hard but felt proud? Tell me your story. It makes me strong to know I'm not alone. Lesson learned. Raising a child alone is not easy. You feel tired and sad sometimes. But your love for your child gives you power. You don't need someone who leaves. Your child's smile is worth every hard day. Be proud of yourself. You are stronger than you know.